Hi, everyone. I'm immigration attorney John Khosravi, and today I'm going to talk about H-1Bs. We're coming up on the next season for H-1Bs for filing it. So I want to talk about 7 important points you need to know when registering for the H-1B process. All right, thanks so much for continuing and listening to us. This is a very important topic for those who are planning to file for the H-1B, whether it's an employer or the employee. You got to know what the situation with the H-1B process is. We're going to focus on just the registration portion of it, the initial step. So tip number one and point number one, the H-1B process has changed it since President Trump came. Originally, and how it's been for a long time is everyone files a full application on April 1st, and then they wait to see if they're chosen in the H-1B lottery. The reality is so many people apply for the H-1B process many times, many years, that there's not enough that could go around. There's a limited number of H-1B visas, and more people than can take all of them apply. So a lottery system comes where they randomly pick people that are chosen in it, and the rest are discarded. To make things a little easier on the applicants and the petitioners, the companies, they create a two-part system nowadays where first you apply for registration, and this is in early March, and about a couple weeks later, they decide who's chosen the lottery, and then you have 90 days to apply for the full H-1B process and wait out the rest of it. So the first thing to note is this multiple system, and do we prepare for it when it comes, and we're going to talk more about that right now. So the second thing I want you to note is that the processing fee, the filing fee for the first step, the registration of the H-1B, is only $10. Now, that doesn't apply for the whole process. Once you file Form I-129 and the H-1B, a change of status, or application itself, there's additional fees. And if you're outside the United States, you're going to do an embassy-based visa or consular visa, there's additional fees there. But that first step is only $10, which is really nice. It's inexpensive. But don't get too happy and try applying for many of these or have many employers filing for you or have your same employer filing several of these for you. If they find duplicates, they will just cancel out all of those. So it's very important to know out of this, it's inexpensive. It's not to be taken advantage of and used in multiple ways like that because it could disqualify you in general. The third point I want to make is that if you have a higher degree, like a master's degree, there are additional numbers of visas available and give you special opportunity and more chances to be able to obtain the H-1B visa. So when you're applying there, you really should have your paperwork together and maybe look to see that higher level of education if you can get it based on that, because it will give you extra advantageous results in the H-1B lottery system. Now, point number 4, all the visas don't always get used up in that initial lottery process. For example, in 2020, a lot of people filed for the H-1B, a lot of people were approved, but not all of them actually applied for the H-1B visa. And by the time several months went by, USCIS Immigration Department saw that they had a lot of unused visas. So they just announced out of nowhere that they're holding a second round of lottery and going back to the pool of lottery winners that they had to choose from them more people to apply for the visa. Now, don't expect something like this to happen every time. It's not usual, but that is something that's possible and it does happen. So always be prepared. Sometimes you have multiple chances and a lot of people were pleasantly surprised. Now, one negative that we saw during the Trump administration is the extended delays in approving the H-1B. For example, in April 1st, and they filed the case and got the ball rolling, the government shut down premium processing, the ability to get a faster decision on it. And then that cases that went from April to May to June to July to August, September, and as far back as January of the next year, almost one entire year to wait to see what's happening with their H-1B visa. Now, you're allowed to stay in the United States pending the change of status as long as your other issues are good. You don't have any other issues with the process. But the ability to work, for example, if you're on OPT, you're on a student F1 work visa, that ends when you reach the September mark. So you've got to be very careful. You might have to stop working, but you could stay lawfully in the United States. Alternatively, you could have gone overseas outside the United States and applied for the visa outside. The change of status would take too long, but the primary case was approved, for example. But going outside has its own issues with the travel bans. So in general, it's a mess. And this is why it's really important to schedule a consultation and work with an immigration attorney through this so you can strategize what the best methods are to deal with all the hurdles that are placed upon you by the government, by these proclamations, maybe by COVID-19 and anything else that'll pop up in the future that we're not expecting. There's all sorts of issues that pop up. Although most people go through it successfully, there's a lot of little things that you have to be mindful of, which leads us to our next point, which is this. The applicant, the foreign national itself, who's the beneficiary of the H-1B visa, has to have a clear history. And one issue that I see pop up a lot is people who have J-1 visas. These are culture exchange students or people who came on J-1 internships and the like. Sometimes they're subject to something called a 2-year home residency requirement, which means that the knowledge they learned while in the United States in these training courses, they have to take back to their home country for 2 years and share it there, or at least live in their home country before they can apply for the H-1B. So every year I have people call me saying, my employer is going to file for me. I'm so excited. I have a master's degree. The chances of me getting approved are really high and I'm really excited. Then I say, well, what kind of visa do you have? They say, I have a J-1. I say, uh-oh. Or I say, have you ever had a J-1 in the past before? They did have one in the past. And I say, okay, let me see your J-1 visa. Let me look at your DS 2019. Let's look at what you studied and your home country, what it is. And then sometimes, unfortunately, we see they're subject to the 2-year home residency requirement, and that is a major disaster because you cannot get an H-1B visa if you're subject to the 2-year residency requirement. Now, we could request a waiver of that residency requirement, but that takes time, it's not guaranteed, and it creates additional complications. So if you do have a J-1 in particular, you should immediately be researching this issue of whether you are subject to the 2-year residency requirement, and if it's something that's going to hold you back, so you can start dealing with it way beforehand, before it becomes an issue that's going to be problematic for your case. Now, it's not just a J-1. If you have other immigration issues, it could potentially pop up that you get denied on the H-1B, even if you're chosen in a lottery. So it's very important at the registration phase, at the very beginning, the lawyer look at the beneficiary, analyze them to see if it's even worth moving forward. I know it's just $10 for the first step, but even if you're approved in a lottery, can you move forward from there? So a big part of the process is to do all the homework beforehand to know what we're dealing with so we don't have surprises later and waste everybody's time. And you get so happy. Imagine you get chosen in a lottery, you're moving forward, then all of a sudden you realize you're subject to some issue that's going to make it impossible for you to get the H-1B. And you're like, well, I wish I knew that sooner, so I would get so excited and so happy that I'm going to continue living this dream and working at the place I want to work at and developing my career and all that kind of stuff. So it's something very important to think about and analyze with an attorney before you start anything in the H-1B process. Now, point number 6 is a quick one. In the application registration, not the H-1B itself, but the registration for the H-1B lottery, there's a lot of pieces of information that have to be provided. From the employer side, it could be their EIN number, their name, their contact information, and the person signing the document, and sort of the same for the foreign national beneficiary, their name, their dates of birth, and a lot of identifying biographic information about them for the process. So it should be there. It should be listed in that registration place. So be prepared for that. However, the labor conditions application, the LCA, which is required as part of the H-1B process, which goes over the wages being paid to a foreign national if it compares to a U.S. worker and all that information, does not have to be ready at the registration stage, but I would strongly recommend you prepare it at least at the same time or soon afterwards. So if you're chosen, you have time to prepare that properly and get all the documentation order. Again, you don't want surprises in the process. You want to do all your homework beforehand, so you thought about all the issues and contingencies and problems that come up and have ways to deal with them and make sure something you want to move forward before making these big steps and getting all excited about something. You really want to prep for it well. So you really want the employer and the beneficiary, the company that's hiring you and the foreign person who's getting the job, to be working together with the lawyer, sharing that information so we have a complete picture of the process. And so that information is really key. So with that, I want to thank you for watching this video. We're getting prepared for the registration season. Please contact my office and we could connect you with a colleague to help you and your employer through this system. My email is info@jqqlaw.com. My phone number 818-934-1561. I'm Immigration Attorney John Khosravi. Please contact us and we'll put you in touch with the person that's going to help you get to where you need. Thank you so much and be safe. I hope you have success on the lottery. I hope you enjoyed this educational video. We have a second channel with much more information as well at JQK Immigration Clips. Please check that out. Also, you'll find our social media site has a lot more videos, images, and information about the U.S. immigration process. Please check those out on the various social media websites.